Black chef's cooking showdown wins over rival family restaurant. The sizzle of oil in a cast iron pan filled the kitchen with a familiar comfort as Marcus Harrington's knife moved with practiced precision across the cutting board. 30 years of culinary expertise guided his hands as he diced onions into perfect, uniform pieces. The kitchen of Soul Plate had emptied hours ago, but Marcus remained, testing a new recipe that had come to him in a dream. The restaurant lights cast long shadows across stainless steel counters as the clock on the wall ticked past midnight. His concentration broke when the door swung open, revealing his daughter Ayana, still in her chef's whites from her shift at Bellissimo, the upscale Italian restaurant across town. "Dad, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight with restraint. "Giovanni Romano was on the local news tonight. He's hosting a regional cooking competition, and he specifically called you out." Marcus's knife paused mid-chop. "Called me out? What are you talking about?" Ayana pulled out her phone, queued up the video, and handed it to her father. On the screen, Giovanni Romano, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, stood outside his restaurant, Bellissimo's ornate facade gleaming behind him. "And as part of our 40-year anniversary celebration," Giovanni was saying, his Italian accent still pronounced despite decades in America, "we're hosting the first-ever Riverdale Culinary Classic. The finest chefs in the county will compete, and the winner receives a $50,000 prize package and feature in Cuisine Monthly." His expression shifted, a smug smile playing at his lips. "And I'm personally extending an invitation to Marcus Harrington of Soul Plate. It's time we settle once and for all whose cuisine reigns supreme in this town." The camera panned to the interviewer. "Are you referring to the long-standing rivalry between your establishments?" Giovanni chuckled. "Can you call it a rivalry when there's such a clear difference in quality? Soul food versus authentic Italian cuisine. It's like comparing a home cook to a maestro." He gestured dramatically. "But I'm a sporting man. Let him bring his best recipes, those handed-down dishes his grandmother taught him. We'll see how they stand against real culinary innovation." Marcus's jaw tightened as the video ended. The knife in his hand suddenly felt heavier. "Tell me you're not going to let that stand," Ayana said, crossing her arms. "Ayana, you know how I feel about these publicity stunts. That man has been trying to get under my skin for 20 years. This isn't just about you anymore, Dad. Did you hear how he talked? Those handed-down dishes his grandmother taught him. He might as well have patted you on the head and called you boy." Ayana's voice cracked with anger. "This is about respect for you, for our food, for our culture." Marcus looked at his daughter, seeing not just the talented chef she'd become, but the little girl who used to stand on a stool beside him at the stove, watching with wide eyes as he transformed simple ingredients into dishes that told their family's story. She'd gone to culinary school, trained in Paris, and now worked at Bellissimo, a fact that still sometimes felt like a small betrayal, though he'd never say so. "Why do you care what Giovanni Romano thinks?" Marcus asked quietly. "You work for him." "I work in his kitchen, Dad. I don't work for him." Anna's eyes flashed. "And you know exactly why I'm there, to learn everything they know, everything they wouldn't teach someone like me in culinary school." She hesitated. "But if you enter this competition, I'll quit tomorrow and help you prepare." Marcus turned back to his cutting board, knife resuming its rhythm. "I haven't said I'm doing it. The deadline to enter is tomorrow at noon," Ayana pressed. "You should go home, get some rest. It's late." Ayana stared at her father's back for a long moment before turning toward the door. "You know, when Mom was alive, she never let anyone talk down to her or to you." The door swung shut behind her with a soft click that somehow echoed louder than a slam. Marcus worked in silence for several minutes, the only sounds the knife against the board and the bubbling of the pot on the stove. Finally, he set the knife down and pulled his cell phone from his pocket. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he rarely called. "Hello?" answered a sleepy voice. "James," Marcus said, "it's your brother. I need a favor." 3 weeks later, the convention center hummed with activity. Camera crews positioned equipment, judges consulted in hushed tones, and 8 cooking stations stood ready, gleaming under the bright lights. The air already carried hints of spices and anticipation. Marcus adjusted his chef's coat, the familiar weight of his lucky wooden spoon in the pocket providing small comfort. At 62, he was easily the oldest competitor, a fact the morning news hadn't failed to mention. "Chef Harrington, over here." A reporter waved, her cameraman already filming. "How does it feel to be the underdog in today's competition?" Marcus forced a smile. "I wasn't aware I was the underdog. I've been cooking longer than some of these contestants have been alive. But this is your first competition, correct? And you're going up against Chef Romano on his home turf, so to speak." He's won 3 regional competitions and was a quarterfinalist on MasterChef America back in 2008. The restaurant has been serving this community for 30 years, Marcus replied evenly. I'll let my food speak for itself. Before the reporter could ask another question, Ayana appeared at his side carrying a small cooler. Sorry to interrupt, but Chef Harrington needs to prepare now. She guided her father away from the cameras toward their assigned station. You good? She asked quietly. I'm fine, just forgot how much I hate all this. He gestured at the cameras, the lights, the spectacle, showmanship. It's just another day in the kitchen, Ayana reassured him. Forget the cameras, forget Giovanni. Cook like you're making Sunday dinner and Grandma Esther is watching over your shoulder. The mention of his mother brought a genuine smile to Marcus's face. She'd have words about all this fuss. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcement boomed over the speakers. Welcome to the inaugural Riverdale Culinary Classic. 8 of our region's finest chefs will compete today in 3 elimination rounds. By the end of the day, only one will be crowned champion. The crowd applauded as the host, a local celebrity chef named Devin Walsh, strode to center stage. For our first round, chefs will create an elevated appetizer highlighting our secret ingredient. He paused dramatically as assistants rolled out a covered cart. With a flourish, Devin whisked away the cloth. Sweet potatoes! A murmur rippled through the crowd. Marcus and Ayana exchanged a look soul food territory. Chefs, you have 45 minutes starting. Now! The kitchen erupted into activity. Marcus moved with deliberate calm, unlike the younger chefs who rushed to the pantry area. He knew exactly what he wanted to make. Across the room, Giovanni Romano caught his eye and smirked. The Italian chef had brought his son Marco as his assistant Marco, who had gone to culinary school with Ayana and, according to her, had never let her forget she was just a soul food chef's daughter. Don't look at them, Ayana murmured. What are we making? Sweet potato and collard green hand pies with spiced honey drizzle, Marcus answered, already peeling the sweet potatoes. My mother's recipe with a few twists. For the next 45 minutes, they worked in practiced harmony. Marcus handled the filling sweet potatoes mashed with butter, cinnamon, and a secret blend of spices, mixed with sautéed collard greens, onions, and smoked turkey. Ayana prepared the pastry, rolling it thin, cutting perfect circles, and crimping the edges with artistic precision after they'd filled each one. With 5 minutes remaining, they arranged the golden brown hand pies on plates, drizzled them with the spiced honey, and added a small garnish of microgreens. Time's up, hands off your plates, Devin announced. The judges moved from station to station, tasting and making notes. When they reached Marcus's station, he described his dish with quiet pride. I've prepared sweet potato and collard green hand pies with a spiced honey drizzle. It's a modern take on flavors that have sustained my family for generations. The lead judge, a renowned chef from Chicago, took a bite. Her eyebrows rose slightly. The balance between sweet and savory is remarkable, and the pastry is perfectly executed, crisp yet tender. The second judge nodded in agreement. There's such depth of flavor here. Each bite tells a story. Third judge, a food critic known for his brutal honesty, seemed less impressed. It's well-executed comfort food, but is it elevated enough for this competition? I'm not convinced. Marcus maintained his composure, but Ayana tensed beside him. They watched as the judges moved on to Giovanni's station, where he presented sweet potato gnocchi with brown butter sage sauce and crispy pancetta. Magnificent transformation of the ingredient, the third judge proclaimed. This is what innovation looks like. After tasting all 8 dishes, the judges conferred while Devin kept the audience engaged with chef interviews. Finally, they announced their decision. The following chefs will advance to round 2: Giovanni Romano, Marcus Harrington, Sasha Chen, and Michael Brooks. The crowd applauded as 4 chefs were eliminated. Marcus released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was too close, Ayana whispered. We're through, Marcus replied. That's what matters. As they reset their station for the second round, Giovanni approached, his son trailing behind him. Marcus, old friend, Giovanni said, his voice carrying just enough for nearby cameras to pick up. Congratulations on advancing. Your hand pies looked homey. Thank you, Giovanni, Marcus replied evenly. Your gnocchi looked familiar. I believe I saw that exact recipe in Food and Wine last month. Giovanni's smile tightened. Good luck in the next round. You'll need it. Turned to leave, but Marco lingered. Nice to see you again, Ayana, Marco said. Still playing sous chef to daddy? I thought you had bigger ambitions. Ayana's smile was razor-sharp. I did. That's why I've been learning all your father's secrets for the past year, she winked. Thanks for always leaving your station notes out when you go on smoke breaks. Marco's face flushed as he hurried after his father. Was that necessary? Marcus asked his daughter. Ayana shrugged. Probably not, but it felt good. The second round featured duck as the main ingredient. Marcus prepared a duck breast with blackberry bourbon sauce, accompanied by Southern-style dirty rice using the duck liver and heart. The dish earned universal praise from the judges, even the critical third judge, who admitted he'd severely underestimated Chef Harrington's technical skills. Giovanni's duck confit with cherry reduction also scored highly, setting up a final round showdown between Marcus and Giovanni, exactly the drama the event organizers had hoped for. As they prepared for the dessert round, James, Marcus's brother, appeared backstage. "You're killing it out there, little brother," James said, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. "Doesn't feel like it," Marcus admitted. "I'm exhausted, and we've still got one round to go." "The whole restaurant is watching on the live stream," James told him. "Mrs. Gladys said to tell you she's already planning the celebration for when you win." Marcus smiled at the mention of his oldest customer, a 90-year-old woman who'd been dining at Soul Plate every Sunday since it opened. "No pressure, then?" "Dad," Ayana interrupted, "they're announcing the final challenge." The three of them turned their attention to Devin, who stood center stage with a dramatic expression. "For our final round, our two remaining chefs will create a dessert that represents their culinary heritage while incorporating one ingredient from their opponent's tradition. Chef Romano will use a soul food ingredient, while Chef Harrington will use an Italian ingredient." Marcus and Giovanni were each presented with a covered basket. Inside Marcus's was a bottle of amaretto liqueur. Giovanni received a jar of sorghum syrup. "Chefs, you have 1 hour to create a dessert that will crown one of you champion. Your time starts now." Marcus stared at the amaretto for a moment, then turned to Ayana. "Sweet potato pie with amaretto?" she questioned. "Trust me." He began gathering ingredients. "We'll make a sweet potato pie with an amaretto-infused pecan praline topping and amaretto whipped cream." They worked silently for the first 20 minutes, the pressure of the final round palpable. Across the kitchen, Giovanni and Marco appeared to be making cannoli with a sorghum filling. As Marcus mixed the sweet potato filling, incorporating the perfect amount of cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla, he felt a strange calm settle over him. This was what he knew, what he loved. The showmanship, the cameras, the rivalry, none of it mattered once his hands were working with food. "Remember when Mom used to let me lick the bowl when she made sweet potato pie?" Ayana asked quietly as she blind-baked the crust. Marcus nodded, a bittersweet smile crossing his face. "She always said you had the most sophisticated palate of any 5-year-old she'd ever met. She'd be proud of you today. She'd be proud of us both." While the pie baked, they prepared the praline topping, the amaretto adding a subtle almond note to the caramelized pecans. The aroma began to fill their corner of the kitchen, drawing appreciative glances from the production crew. When the timer announced 15 minutes remaining, disaster struck. As Marcus removed the perfect pie from the oven, a cameraman backing up bumped into him. The pie tilted precariously, and while Marcus managed to save it from falling to the floor, one side of the crust collapsed in on itself. "No, no, no," Ayana gasped. Marcus stared at the damaged pie, his mind racing through options. The filling was intact, but the presentation was ruined. They didn't have time to start over. "Deconstructed," he said suddenly. "We'll do a deconstructed sweet potato pie." Working quickly, they scooped the filling into individual serving glasses, crumbled the salvageable crust on top, added the praline, and finished with the amaretto, whipped cream, and a delicate pecan tuile for height and crunch. "Time's up! Hands off your desserts!" Devin called. The judges approached Giovanni's station first. He presented cannoli with sorghum mascarpone filling, chocolate chips, and a sorghum caramel drizzle. The judges praised his creative use of the unfamiliar ingredient, though the third judge mentioned the filling was slightly too sweet. When they reached Marcus's station, he explained the intentional, deconstructed presentation, earning knowing smiles from the judges who had witnessed the accident. "The combination of sweet potato, amaretto, and pecan is inspired," the first judge commented after tasting. "The flavors build with each bite. The textural contrast is excellent," added the second judge. "Creamy filling, crunchy praline, tender crust crumbles." The third judge took his time, savoring a second spoonful before speaking. "Chef Harrington, I owe you an apology. I question whether you belonged in this competition. This dessert isn't just technically flawless, it has soul. It tells a story of tradition embracing innovation without losing its identity." Marcus nodded his thanks, emotion making speech difficult. After a final deliberation, the judges returned to center stage with Devin. "After 3 challenging rounds," Devin announced, "we have our champion. The winner of the first Riverdale Culinary Classic, receiving $50,000 and a feature in Cuisine Monthly, is..." The convention center fell silent. Chef Marcus Harrington of Soul Plate. The crowd erupted in cheers. Ayana threw her arms around her father's neck, tears streaming down her face. James rushed over, enveloping them both in a bear hug. "You did it, Dad, you did it," Ayana kept repeating. Marcus stood stunned for a moment before making his way to the stage to receive the oversized check and trophy. As he shook hands with the judges, he glanced into the audience and spotted Mrs. Gladys in the front row, clapping with arthritic hands, her face beaming with pride. After the photographs and initial interviews, Marcus found Giovanni standing alone near the exit. The Italian chef looked older somehow, the lines in his face deeper than they had appeared that morning. "Congratulations, Marcus," Giovanni said, extending his hand. "You deserved the win." Marcus hesitated only briefly before shaking it. "Thank you, your cannoli was impressive." Giovanni nodded. Perhaps we've both been too stubborn over the years." "Perhaps," Marcus agreed. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them until Giovanni spoke again. "Your daughter, she is very talented." "Yes, she is. Marco told me she's been working in my kitchen for a year. I had no idea." Marcus couldn't help but smile. "She's good at flying under the radar when she wants to be. She has learned all she can from Bellissimo," Giovanni said, "but I think she still has much to learn from her father." Before Marcus could respond, Giovanni nodded curtly and walked away, leaving Marcus to consider his words. The convention center had nearly emptied when Ayana found him still standing there, trophy in hand. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Just thinking," Marcus replied. "What will you do now?" "Will you go back to Bellissimo tomorrow?" Ayana took a deep breath. "Actually, I was thinking, maybe it's time Soul Plate expanded its offerings, a dinner service with some fusion dishes, traditional soul food foundations with global influences." Marcus studied his daughter's face, so like her mother's, so full of passion and determination. "And who would run this dinner service?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "We would," Ayana said, "together. At least until you decide to actually retire and let me take over completely." Marcus laughed, the sound echoing in the nearly empty hall. "I see you've got it all figured out. I learned from the best." As they walked toward the exit, trophy and check in hand, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a weight he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying for years. The competition had never really been about beating Giovanni Romano. It had been about proving something to himself, and perhaps finding a way to bridge the gap that had grown between him and his daughter. "So," he said as they stepped into the evening air, "tell me more about these fusion dishes you're planning." Anna's eyes lit up as she began describing her ideas, her hands gesturing animatedly. Marcus listened, nodding occasionally, his mind already calculating costs, menu changes, and training schedules. Change was coming to Soul Plate, and for the first time in a long time, he was ready to embrace it. 6 months later, Soul Plate hummed with activity. The newly renovated space now included an expanded dining room, a small bar area, and an open kitchen where guests could watch the chefs at work. Framed on the wall near the entrance hung the Riverdale Culinary Classic trophy, alongside the cover of Cuisine Monthly featuring Marcus and Ayana standing side by side in the Soul Plate kitchen. Marcus moved through the dining room, greeting regulars and welcoming newcomers. Friday nights were always busy, but since the expansion and the introduction of Ayana's dinner menu, they'd been completely booked weeks in advance. "Everything to your liking, Mrs. Gladys?" Marcus asked, stopping at the table where the elderly woman sat with her daughter and granddaughter. "The food is wonderful as always, Marcus," Mrs. Gladys replied, patting his hand. "But I still think you should have put your sweet potato pie on the dessert menu instead of that deconstructed version Ayana makes." Marcus chuckled. "It's the same recipe, Mrs. Gladys, just served differently." "It's not the same," she insisted. "Some things shouldn't be changed." "I'll bring you a slice of the traditional pie on the house," Marcus promised, knowing he kept a few in the kitchen for special customers like her. As he made his way back to the kitchen, he spotted an unexpected figure sitting alone at the bar. Giovanni Romano, sipping a glass of red wine, his silver hair neatly combed as always. Marcus approached cautiously. "Giovanni, this is a surprise." The Italian chef turned, a small smile playing at his lips. "I thought it was time I tried this new Soul Plate everyone is talking about." He gestured to the empty plate before him. The black-eyed pea arancini with collard green pesto was unexpected. "And excellent. I'll tell Ayana you approved, that's one of her creations." Giovanni nodded. "She has a gift." He hesitated, then added, "Bellissimo is not the same without her in the kitchen. Marco misses her, though he would never admit it." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Is that right?" "Young people," Giovanni sighed, shaking his head. "So much pride." "I wouldn't know anything about that," Marcus said with a straight face. Giovanni laughed, a genuine sound that carried across the bar. "No, of course not." He finished his wine and stood. I should go. Friday nights are busy at Bellissimo as well. Before you leave, Marcus said, I've been meaning to ask you something. That invitation to the competition, why after all these years? Giovanni considered the question. Perhaps I realize time is not infinite and some rivalries go on too long. He adjusted his suit jacket. Or perhaps I simply wanted to see if you were as good as everyone said. And better, Giovanni admitted. But don't let that go to your head. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope, handing it to Marcus. An invitation. Bellissimo's 41st anniversary next month. A special dinner, chefs from around the region preparing a course. I'd like Soul Plate to be represented. Marcus took the envelope. I'll discuss it with my partner. Good, and Marcus, bring the sweet potato pie, the real one, not that deconstructed nonsense. With a nod, Giovanni departed, leaving Marcus smiling despite himself. He tucked the envelope into his pocket and pushed through the swinging doors into the kitchen. The organized chaos of a busy restaurant kitchen greeted him, line cooks calling orders, the clatter of pans, the whoosh of flames. And in the center of it all, Ayana, directing the symphony with confident commands and occasional demonstrations. She looked up as he entered, raising an eyebrow in question. Mrs. Gladys wants a slice of traditional sweet potato pie, he explained. Bottom shelf of the dessert fridge, Ayana replied. Dad, can you expedite for a few minutes? I need to check on the special. And just like that, Marcus slipped back into the rhythm of the kitchen, the place where he'd spent most of his life. But now, instead of carrying the weight of Soul Plate alone, he shared it with his daughter. Their hands moved in similar patterns. Their voices called out the same phrases, a culinary language passed from one generation to the next, preserved yet evolving. As he plated Mrs. Gladys's pie, adding a dollop of amaretto whipped cream despite knowing she'd scrape it off, Marcus caught sight of the magazine cover on the wall. His and Ayana's faces smiled back at him beneath the headline, Soul Plate Revolution, How a Cooking Competition Bridged Generations and Traditions. Not quite the whole story, Marcus thought, but close enough. He added a mint sprig to the plate and handed it to the server, already turning his attention to the next order, the next dish, the next chapter in the continuing story of Soul Plate. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel for more content like this. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Where are you watching from? Let us know.